Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 268, Friday, December the 1st, 2017. Man oh man, say goodbye to November, and Christmas is right around the corner, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and especially to my brand new subscribers. It seems like in the past couple weeks I'm seeing more and more subscribers every day that are new, so just want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. And for those of you who are new, a little confused about the TowerGate thing and what we do here, over the next week or two I will do another video and talk about what's kind of happening here at TowerGate and how all this got started. But I really try to find a slow news day for that, but we're having not too many slow news days. But I certainly will get to that, because I understand when you're a new subscriber, you have a lot of questions about exactly what TowerGate is, what it's all about, and how I got started doing these videos. So I just want you to know that I understand that, and I will take care of that for you, probably in the next week or two. So just bear with me. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, I wanted to talk today about two really important stories that were done by John Solomon over at the site he writes for. He writes for several sites, actually. But specifically, you see a lot of his stuff on Daily Caller and Circa, along with Sarah Carter. But he writes primarily, I think, for The Hill. And the stories I'm referring to first were, at The Hill. So if you haven't read those stories at thehill.com of John Solomon having to do with the uranium one and all that type of thing, that's what I want to talk about today. So a little bit different than what I normally do on TowerGate, where I kind of have about 15 or 20 of the top news stories of the day and I comment on them. Today I'm really going to focus on this story, the uranium one story, and the larger story that surrounds it. And I want to try to, before I do that, I want to put this into context, because you really need to have the proper context when you're looking at any story or piece of information. I think it really helps you to relate it to something, and it helps you to understand better when you understand the context of something, because you take the context out of something, it could mean a lot of different things. And so I want to really get clear on the context so that we understand exactly what is going on. And it kind of ties into the larger TowerGate story, and it kind of dovetails into the surveillance and the dossier, and all these other things are all on the peripheral of what I want to talk about. But I just want to focus on today some of the highlights that John Solomon pointed out in his article from The Hill, comment on that, and I want to put this all into the proper context. So to begin with, I think I'd like to ask the question, which is one that we talk about a lot, is why exactly did the entire establishment, both Republican and Democrat establishment, try so hard to destroy the candidacy of Donald Trump, and then once he became president, tried so hard and are still trying to destroy his presidency? What was it about Donald Trump that brought such a reaction? And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it's two things. It's, his policies, he's crazy, and, his bombastic demeanor and his behavior and all that type of stuff, his style, essentially. So I want to kind of debunk these two things because I think they need to be debunked. And I don't hear anybody doing that. So I want to try to, go back and relive this for just a moment. In this first point that, the establishment wanted to destroy Trump because they think his policies are bad or dangerous or what have you. If we go back to the campaign, Donald Trump's main three issues that he spoke about most often, besides the general drain the swamp of the corruption, which is something that's, touched on by all politicians in all elections for as long as I can remember. But the big things that Trump talked about, of course, was the immigration. And, of course, his solution, of course, was to enforce immigration laws and build a wall. And he also talked a lot, of course, about defeating ISIS. And, of course, he talked about getting the economy going and about jobs, which relates directly to trade deals and taxes, the way we tax businesses in America and make them uncompetitive. So these were really the hard-hitting points that Trump worked over and over and over again as he traveled across the country campaigning. So when you look at these policy ideas, The idea that, first, let's take the immigration thing that he talked about all the time. The Republicans have been talking about immigration reform for as long as I can remember. Going all the way back to, I can remember going all the way back to at least the Reagan administration. And the fact of building a wall, that's not an alarming thing to say. I remember when Bill Clinton, back in 1992, and you can probably find the speech on YouTube. I remember when Bill Clinton was making the exact same case, almost word for word, on immigration and building a border wall. Or at that time they would say a security fence or what have you. Hillary Clinton herself, out campaigning for Bill Clinton back in 92, was out there talking about the fact that, all these open borders allows people to come into the country. It drives down wages, crime, the cost to medical services and other government services. These were all points that the Democrat Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were campaigning on in 92. They're issues that have been fought over between Republicans and Democrats for as long as I can remember. And the idea that we're going to build a border wall, Hillary Clinton supported building some type of a security perimeter or security fence herself, even when she was campaigning the first time around against Obama. She talked about this. So this idea that somehow his position on immigration and building a wall or a security perimeter to border is not in any way, shape, or form some incredibly volatile policy position to take, or some dangerous policy position, or some policy position that's just out of this world crazy. It's a very mainstream thing. It's been talked about a lot in politics, particularly by the Republican Party, but also by Democrats for a very long time. In fact, before NAFTA and all the trade deals, the labor unions and a lot of the Democratic donor base were big supporters of doing something about immigration because it was costing them union jobs, and union members knew that. So this I want to debunk, and I think I just have debunked it. So this is his position on immigration, building the wall, was not some sort of a policy position that should have gotten the entire establishment wanting to destroy him. That's not the reason. His position on, wanting to take out ISIS. The only position he was saying was that, hey, we think the military has their hands tied. I'm going to untie their hands and let the military do what they do. Now, for the 8 years of Bush and 8 years of Obama, or 7 years of Bush and 8 years of Obama, that's all we heard was about how we're fighting the terrorists. We're trying to kill the terrorists. We're trying to take down Al-Qaeda. We're trying to take down ISIS. We're trying to take down Boko Haram. We're trying to take down all these people. Now, they would never use the word in the Obama administration, Islamic extremist or Muslim extremist or anything like that. But as far as the war on terror, or as far as taking out the terrorist or whatever, that's nothing new. The only thing Trump was suggesting is that we need to do a better job of it. And the way to do that is to take the handcuffs off the military and turn them loose and let them take care of business, which is exactly what Trump has done, and we can see the results. We can see that he's succeeded in Syria. He's succeeded in Iraq. Raqqa has fallen, my friends. And Al-Qaeda and ISIS are on the run. And so this was no great scary thing that Trump was talking about, taking out ISIS and really putting the control of into the hands of the military and not making it so political. That was no great policy position. It was so scary. So that certainly couldn't have been the reason why the establishment of both parties would be so motivated to destroy his candidacy and his presidency. And then, of course, his position on the economy and free trade. And, of course, this is another thing. Before all the Clinton signed all the free trade deals and Bush followed behind him with all the more free trade deals, before that, the majority of the Democratic Party was totally opposed. They fought Clinton tooth and nail on NAFTA. In fact, Clinton passed NAFTA and GATT with the majority, although GATT kind of began before, but these trade deals, particularly NAFTA, which was the most dangerous one, the most deadly one, the most costly one, Clinton got that passed mostly with Republican votes. The majority of Democrats voted against these free trade deals, and all the labor unions were opposed to it. And we've had many people over the past. Pat Buchanan, probably the loudest voice of all. And Pat Buchanan challenged George Herbert Walker Bush in the primaries. He challenged him in the primaries solely on the free trade issue. And Pat Buchanan did quite well until they took him down with a dirty trick. And I supported Pat Buchanan that year. So I think that was 96. Well, he ran in 92 and 96. But he really got ahead of steam going because after a few years of NAFTA, it didn't take long for people to see how rapidly we were seeing wages being driven down, how we were seeing jobs being moved to China, being moved to Mexico, being moved to the Southeast Asia. So, Trump's position on trade is just simply stating the obvious, which is that the trade deals have not been this utopia that we were told it was going to be. That in fact these trade deals have driven down wages. They have cost American jobs. They have cost American manufacturing. And anyone who's old enough, like myself, to have been around to see America, what it was like before the trade deals and after the trade deals, just as Trump, myself, and many, many other people all realize this. And so he wasn't the only one out there making this argument. That argument's been being made by people for a very long time, and especially once the results were in and we could see that all those people who warned us about the dangers of this type of trade policy would be, vindicated. And in fact, they have been. And all that was Trump being vindicated, saying what many other people have said. And there was nothing particular, crazy about the policy of canceling these trade deals and renegotiating these trade deals. And that's a very popular position, and that's another big reason Trump won so many states in the Rust Belt. It was the trade issue. It was the trade issue. That's what cost Hillary the losses in the Rust Belt more than anything else. So these particular three issues were really what Trump campaigned on, and none of these issues are particularly, wildly outside the realm of normalcy. They're very common positions, and many other people have taken and supported these positions, including Democrats, including the rotten reverend and her pervert husband, Slick Willie Clinton. So it certainly couldn't be the policy positions. It couldn't be the reason why the deep state, both the establishment Republicans and Democrats, wanted to take down Donald Trump. So what's the next issue they go to? Oh, well, his personality. He's unhinged. He's bombastic. He's this. He's that. He tweets. Blah, 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 blah. Well, again, if you just take a walk back through history, you don't have to go back too far, but you can go back as far as you like, and you can find plenty of politicians and plenty of times in our history when politics were far more bombastic. Just take a look at that election that was held with John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson, and take a look at Andrew Jackson himself. Can you imagine Andrew Jackson having a Twitter account? What that would have looked like? He was far more bombastic than Trump. I mean, you talk about a guy who was really off the rails. Andrew Jackson, talk about a no-nonsense type person who would say exactly what he thought and didn't care about political correctness at all, because political correctness did exist in Andrew Jackson's time. Not to the level it is today, and not on the same wavelength, but there was a such thing as political correctness back then as well. And Andrew Jackson was quite bombastic. And how about, let's go back to the second president of the United States, John Adams. John Adams, he signed the Alien and Seditions Act. He was throwing journalists in jail because he was so thin-skinned that he couldn't take the criticism. So he locked journalists up. Woodrow Wilson did the same. Pardon me, a sesame seed. Now, to say that, it was in Harry Truman, let's take a look at another guy, Harry Truman. He was known for being, kind of nasty, had a short temper. He wasn't loved by the establishment either. He was a no-nonsense, tell-it-like-it-is sort of guy. He was not politically correct in any sense of the word, and he was disliked by a lot of the establishment as well. And of course, the deep state of his day didn't like him either, particularly because when he was a senator from Missouri, he actually was the guy who went after the military-industrial complex, the defense industry. He drug them into the Senate hearings and wanted them to go line by line, dollar by dollar for every penny they spent, because he was trying to prove that they were screwing the taxpayer on defense contracts. So Harry Truman, even had the saying, "Give him hell, Harry." Harry Truman gave people a lot of hell. He was very outspoken and very politically incorrect and very bombastic, a lot like a Trump. So, and I could go on and on. There's others throughout. Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, how far back do you want me to go through history? I could sit here, but I just don't have that much time, or I'd do it for you. But I could go through history and lay out 15, 20 presidents that were quite bombastic, and even Ronald Reagan, not so much as president, but as governor. He calmed down as president, or toned it down a bit, but as governor, I mean, he had pretty sharp tongue. So anyway, this idea that it was either Trump's policies or Trump's style that was the reason why the Republicans and establishment Democrats wanted to take down his candidacy and then his presidency. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. It has nothing to do with it. The reason that they wanted to take down Trump is because they know that they could not allow an honest man to occupy that office and then have enough time to get the old people out and bring new people in who would then maybe take a look at what has been going on and decide that maybe they should do something about it, to expose the crimes and hold people accountable for them. The fact is, Donald Trump was attacked by both sides of the establishment because he was an honest man who couldn't be bought. Most politicians, all politicians I could say, in almost all cases, not only can be bought, but their very purpose is to be bought. They are for sale. They have a huge sign right in front of them, "I'm for sale." But Trump didn't need their money, which means that they really couldn't control him, and that scares them. And the fact that he was an honest man, those two things, the fact that he was honest and they couldn't control him, is the reason that they tried to take down Trump, destroy his candidacy and his presidency, and they're still working on it. Now, that's the context that we want to work from here, is the fact that the purpose was to stop Trump so he could never get into the position he's in now. And for the very reason that we're learning, as we've spent the last few months learning about the real truth, and we're still trying to get it all, about the dossier, the surveillance, the unmasking, the way that the Clinton email investigation was handled and the cover-up and all that. We're learning all that is now being exposed. It's all coming to the surface. And that will continue as more and more people will feel safe to come out and talk about what they know. Just as we saw this Inspector General who just popped up a couple of days ago, and now he wants to tell his story. And there's many other people who are going to come out and tell their story too as well. And these things take time, requires patience. But as more information comes out, and once information comes out, people who can confirm that information will then come out because it's out. And now they can come out and say, yes, this was true. So you're going to see more of this stuff. But now let's get into, now that we have the proper context to understand what John Solomon and Sarah Carter of Circa News are telling us, and what this FBI informant William Campbell is going to be telling us, let's take a look now at some of the more important things from the article from John Solomon, the two articles really of the past 3 days, and you'll understand why the proper context is important, and you'll understand why it had nothing to do with Trump's policy positions or his bombastic style. Had nothing to do with why they wanted to stop Trump. What we're going to learn here in just a moment has everything to do with why they had to stop Trump. Not a question of wanting to, had to. So John Solomon in The Hill tells us that the Clinton Foundation's donor disclosure site vastly understated support that the Clinton Global Initiative received from APKO worldwide. So we have two new words here if you haven't heard them recently. The Clinton Global Initiative. The Clinton Global Initiative was the first so-called charitable organization that Bill Clinton set up. It predated the Clinton Foundation. And in fact, the Clinton Global Initiative is like an umbrella. And under that umbrella are dozens dozens of different charities that the Clintons run, the Clinton Foundation being one of them. But there's also something called the Clinton Health Initiative and other types of little organizations that fall under this umbrella of the larger umbrella, which is the Clinton Global Initiative. And this company, APKO, is a global lobbying firm. And you're going to be hearing a lot about APKO in the days and weeks to come. So let's dig a little deeper. As John Solomon is reporting, the Clinton Foundation vastly understated donations to the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Health Initiative, and other charities, so-called charities that fall under the Clinton Global Initiative. They're showing that APKO worldwide, this global lobbying firm, they're only disclosing $25,000 to $50,000 is being received from APKO at the Clinton Global Initiative, when in fact it was well over $1 million that they received. Not only did they receive $1 million in actual donations through the Clinton Global Initiative, they also received about a similar amount, about another $1 million in free services. APKO, at the same time that they were donating this money to the Clinton Global Initiative and offering another $1 million worth of free services, at the same time they were being paid $3 million from 2010 through the end of 2011 to work for Rosatom. And Rosatom is the state-owned nuclear company in Russia. So here we have APKO being paid $3 million to lobby the American State Department for to try to get energy deals, to try to get energy contracts, and to try to get mergers or takeovers of energy companies, specifically the nuclear energy business. So APKO is receiving $3 million working as lobbyist for the Russian government, lobbying the American government, specifically the State Department, which Hillary was head of, at the same time that they're donating money to the Clinton Global Initiative and offering them over $1 million in free services. Not only that, we learn from this article in The Hill by John Solomon that APKO didn't just lobby about a dozen people in Hillary Clinton's State Department, officials in her State Department. They also lobbied up to 50 members of Congress. And who would these people be? They would be members of Congress who probably headed committees that would have something to say about these mergers and about these energy contracts. These people can be both Republican and Democrat, and they can be people who are either still serving or no longer serving. But who was, during this time period, who was the Speaker? Nancy Pelosi or John Boehner? Who was the Senate Majority Leader? Harry Reid. So there are people who are no longer in government who are going to be caught up in this as these come out. And I imagine John Boehner and Harry Reid and probably Nancy Pelosi are pretty nervous right now, along with the Clintons and many other people. Many. This is going to ensnare Republicans and Democrats, and that is why both Republicans and Democrats tried to stop Trump, because this is just one of many scandals. For this one that we know about and some of the other ones, there are probably hundreds of other ones that involve both Republicans and Democrats. We have learned from this article that the FBI informant William Campbell is going to tell the Congress and show them actual evidence that top Russian officials told him they chose APKO worldwide to lobby the U.S. State Department because of its close connections to the Obama administration and to the Clintons. And we've learned that Campbell told this to the FBI before the Uranium One deal was signed, and others, as we're going to learn. Remember, we're finding out from this story by John Solomon at The Hill that Uranium One was just one of a much larger picture and one of many deals that were done. We also learn of other donations made to the Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton and various organizations under that, including the Clinton Foundation and Clinton Health Initiative and so forth. Here's some other things that they did not disclose. They did not disclose the French lobbying firm Crédit Agricole, which gave the Clinton Global Initiative $1 million in free rent in 2011. We're also learning that Hillary Clinton considered one lobbyist from APKO, a person who was an APKO employee named Elizabeth Jones, that she was considered for 2 top jobs in the State Department, including one of those jobs as the Iraqi ambassador. 2 APKO lobbyists worked in national security positions in the George Bush administration. So you see, there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats in the deep state. That's why you have Republicans and Democrats, the entire establishment, opposed to Trump, and why they have to stop him. Must. Rosatom scored more than $10 billion in new uranium sales during Clinton's tenure. Not just Uranium One, but $10 billion in various uranium sales. See, it gets much, much larger. Much larger. And if you read the article, you will find a lot more than I can even go into in this video. We find other donations to the Clinton Foundation that were not disclosed. $2.35 million from the a family foundation linked to Uranium One. $26 million from the Swedish government, where the Clinton Global Initiative set up a completely separate charity type system in Sweden. And it's like the Clinton Foundation charity, but it's in Swedish. So it doesn't even look like it's the Clintons. It's disguised. So they disguised a lot of these fake charitable foundations that they set up. Many of them. Not just 1 or 2, not just the Clinton Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative. Many, many different types of these things set up in foreign countries that shielded or covered or camouflaged who the true people were behind them. And there's many people behind them associated with the Clintons. And it cuts across all political parties. We have unknown amounts that went to the Clinton Health Access Initiative. The Clinton Health Access Initiative. You ever heard of that one? The Clinton Health Access Initiative. Never heard of it, but it's just another one of many, many of these false charities, so-called charities, that exist under the Clinton Global Initiative. $500,000 from the Algerian government that was not disclosed. That money went to the Clinton Global Initiative, and it was sent and originally to be part of the Haiti earthquake relief. And what if they start looking into Haiti earthquake relief? What do you think they'll find there? Many of us already know was that 98% of the money went to cronies, friends of the Clintons, and very, very little of that money actually made it to those people down in Haiti who are still suffering miserably. Speaking fees were not fully accounted for through the Clinton Global Initiative or the Clinton Foundation. Speaking fees that were made by Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Chelsea Clinton. All 3. None of this was disclosed. A lot of this was not disclosed. Speaking fees from China, Qatar, South Korea, and Thailand. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to learn a lot more when this thing unravels completely. This is why I keep telling you, the Clintons are going to be indicted. Not just the Clintons, but many other people. Some politicians, foreign politicians probably, American politicians, Republicans and Democrats. This is a massive, tangled web of corruption and crime. And it's just a small part of a much larger picture that is so big that you can probably hardly wrap your mind around it. To untangle this would probably take 100 years. They don't have that much time. But this is why I keep telling you that the Clintons are going to be indicted. Because I've been following John Solomon and Sarah Carter's coverage of the story, and although they're certainly liable in the email, and the email investigation has also been ramped up. They've discovered many new emails. Now you have this Inspector General coming out, and he's willing to go out on the record and say, yes, we discovered those 2,100 emails on Clinton's server and the 22 SAP programs. Clapper knew about it. We know about how they handled the investigation in such a fraudulent manner, exonerated Clinton, which Comey didn't even have the ability to do. The meeting on the tarmac, all these other things. And it all ties in to the surveillance, the dossier, the secret meeting, setup meeting with Veselnitskaya. All of this was done to stop Trump. Not because his policies are so crazy, not because his bombastic style, but because he was an honest man who could not be bought. And now he's in the White House. Yes, he inherited a lot of swamp creatures that are still left over, but he's getting rid of them. And they know that as those people go out and new people come in and they begin to look into things like this, and as more and more people come out, and they will, more and more people will come out, just like we saw in Watergate. Once the dam breaks, there's a lot of people who know a lot of things who are staying very quiet because they don't know where they stand right now. But once it becomes safe to come out and tell what you know, it's going to be like the dam bursts. And that's when the ball game will be over. The Clintons will be indicted. Take it to the bank. Maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now. There's a lot to unravel. But I'm telling you, I've been following the story very closely, as many other people have as well. There's no way you can escape from this one. Now, typically, what the Clintons, as being slick lawyers and other lawyers like them, do is they play the plausible deniability card. They go into court, and APKO does exactly what they're already doing, which is to send out a public statement by their lawyers and say, well, it's merely coincidence that we were taking $3 million from the Russians to lobby the State Department for energy contracts and mergers and takeovers of energy companies. It just was coincidence that while we were doing that, the Clinton Foundation was receiving all this money and that we were contributing, as well as many other people, including people in the Russian nuclear industry. Oh, that's just coincidence. And they have plausible deniability, because unless you can prove some crime, they get the plausible deniability. It's a very lawyerly way of doing things. It's what the Clintons have always done. It walks the fine razor's edge between legal and illegal. But the problem comes when someone comes out like an informant, a whistleblower, or something like that, and blows it all up, which is exactly what this FBI informant, William Campbell, is doing. He's blowing up the entire one side of it, where he is going to show proof that the Russians specifically used APKO because of the influence they had through the Clinton Foundation and the Clintons and the Obama administration, and he's going to show that for sure. And so he is going to take away one side of the plausible deniability. And then the other side of the plausible deniability is going to be based on the Clintons' attorney saying it's all coincidence. But all you need to do is go back into the history of the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, and see where you can find a reoccurring pattern of this type of stuff. And then you can say this isn't coincidental. It is a repeated pattern of things. And once you break down the defense of plausible deniability, which you can see with the FBI informant and the long history of documented goings-on at the Clinton Foundation and Clinton Global Initiative, that particular narrative, that legal defense will no longer stand. And that is why the Clintons and many other people are going to fall. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back Saturday with another TowerGate video, and we'll get back to the top news stories of the day. You guys have a good night. See you.